In today's program, we interview Civilized Caveman George Bryant. George spent the first 20 or so years of his life in a constant battle with his weight, and then, nearly having lost both legs while on deployment as a US Marine, George took matters into his own hands and began his own paleo journey. The website that started out as a simple place to post recipes for friends has since turned into a phenomenon and has allowed George to work full-time creating delicious paleo recipes while hoping to change as many lives for the better through making real food recipes simple and tasty for everyone. So let's join Alain and George now and find out how we can bring a bit of civilization to our paleo journeys.
Good morning, George, and welcome to the Low Carb Paleo Show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning to you both. I hope you're both wonderfully well.
I am. I can speak for all of us. I'm pretty wonderful. I don't know. Where you're in France, and then where are you?
I am in Austin, Texas.
Okay, perfect. You're in Austin. That's where my business partner used to live. He kind of lives in a trailer driving across the country right now. So.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah, it's a little humid. It's a little humid in Austin. Yeah.
We're not complaining because unlike you guys in California, we are glad that we're getting some water here.
Yeah, you have the exact opposite problem that we have. So our daughter's actually in Texas right now. She comes home next week. She's in Austin.
Oh, cool.
Yep, small world. So, well, I'm excited to be here, guys. So thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure.
So we found out about you from Julie Bauer, and I was intrigued about your story. That's why we invited you. For people that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I'll give the elevator pitch version, so we're not here all day. So, my battle with eating disorders, food, healthy eating, and everything kind of started when I was 15 years old. That's when I started struggling with bulimia. It was pretty rampant as a child. I had a pretty dysfunctional family, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, social services. So I decided to join the Marine Corps when I was 17, and I figured what's the best way to get away, and it's to do the hardest thing possible. So I joined the Marine Corps. I left in 2002. I was actually in the Marine Corps for 12 years on active duty. I've been to Afghanistan, Somalia. Well, in the Marine Corps, I struggled with my eating, my body image as well. And I had a Napoleon complex. So when I got out of boot camp, I was like 155 pounds, and I had this whole, no one can keep me down, I'll show the world. And I got into bodybuilding and lifting, and I ended up getting up to 230 pounds at my heaviest. And I'm only 5'7", so it doesn't, I was wider than I am tall. Yeah, exactly. And it actually ended up not being a good thing for me. On my 21st birthday, I was out, and I had a full combat gear on, and I was running, and I had extreme amounts of pain in my legs, and all of a sudden they went numb. And after that happened, there was a lot of pain associated with it. I found out I had exercise-induced compartment syndrome. I didn't really know what that was. I was like, okay, great, let me go back to work. It'll be fine. They brought me home, and within a day of me being home, I was on the operating table for my first time. And I ended up having 5 surgeries. I was in a wheelchair for 12 months and did physical therapy for 18 months and ballooned up to my heaviest, which was just under 260 pounds. So that was kind of the kick in the butt I needed going through all of that. You know, lucky to be alive, lucky to have both my legs because they told me I'd never have them again. And so I kind of shifted focus of my life. During my physical therapy, I started training for triathlons thanks to my physical therapist, and that lit the new fitness passion. So I got into triathlons and marathons and all those fun things. And then, 2009, I was in Afghanistan, and I stumbled across Rob Wolf's book, good friend and obviously one of the pioneers of paleo. And I read it cover to cover, and I'm like, okay, there's something to this. Like, this makes sense. It's easy. And I was in Afghanistan, so I was like, I'll just try it. You know, I'll do the best with what I have out here. So I started CrossFit. I started paleo, and I felt absolutely phenomenal. I was sleeping better. I had more energy. And out there, and it's 130 degrees. Every bit of energy matters. And I was like glowing. I felt hormonally, I felt balanced. I felt more energetic. My outlook on life just seemed to be better. Like I wasn't having food crashes. I wasn't having sugar comas. I wasn't dealing with any of the side effects that are associated with those things. And it really lit a passion in me because I was still struggling with my body image. And I came home from Afghanistan and I was like, I got to do this paleo thing. Like whatever it takes, I got to do it. Only problem was I'd never cooked in my life. So I came home, I did some research, I found 3 recipes. And I was like, if all I do is make these 3 recipes and I eat these for 30 days, I'm going to feel great. And that's actually what I did. And I did 30 days. I got down to my leanest I'd ever been. I felt better than I'd ever felt. My allergies had gone away. My migraines had reduced from my traumatic brain injury. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And I'm like, through the process, I discovered that cooking actually helped me feel a lot better. Like I felt like I was accomplishing something, like I was putting love and care into my food and it was nourishing my body and I was living with the results. And that's kind of where the passion came from. So I started a Facebook page and I documented everything I cooked on there, it was an iPhone camera and nothing on a plate, like brown plates, brown food, nothing that anyone would want to look at. But it kind of got it started. And over time, people asked for a website where I would share my journey and talk about it. And that's how the Civilized Caveman was born.
Super.
I can't help but wonder about the name. What makes a civilized caveman?
Well, so what had happened was I had the Facebook page for about 2 months. So I had a lot of interaction and feedback from people. And I was going around trying to figure out a website. I'm like, Paleo Caveman, all these things, and they were all taken. One of the biggest things that I ran into was, how are you paleo if you use a microwave or an oven? And I'm like, well, how are you paleo if you're commenting on Facebook, since cavemen didn't have the internet? And I decided that my easiest and safest bet was to call myself the Civilized Caveman. So I could be a caveman in modern times with modern technology, and it's kind of evolved over time. But the basis was out of that. It's like, I'm a caveman that uses an oven. I don't have an open fire pit in my backyard. I don't go club my animals. I buy them from a butcher, and it was kind of fun, and I played on it. And it was actually Civilized Caveman Cooking Creations to start with. And then now I just kind of go by Civilized Caveman because that was kind of a tongue twister. It was a little long, but it worked out perfectly. And honestly, it all happened how it was supposed to, and I think it's absolutely perfect. And actually my wife will make fun of me. We'll be out to dinner and she's like, will you take smaller bites? You're supposed to be the Civilized Caveman. And I'm like, so it's actually, it's fun. It's worked its way into every area of life. So that's how it started.
Super. Cool. On your blog, you mentioned your bulimia. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, I briefly mentioned my bulimia when we started, but it started for me when I was 15, and I had a family member make some not so good comments. And at that age, those are detrimental when you're dealing with peer pressure and bullies in school and the whole social structure and socioeconomics and all those things. And it kind of devastated me. And so the first time that I ever purged was when I was 15 years old, and it was a roller coaster. I would go on and be pretty healthy and pretty clear for a couple months, and then I'd take a downturn when things were too stressful or things were bad for a couple more months. And then surprisingly enough, most of my Marine Corps career, I still struggled with this, and no one would have ever known. I had a six-pack, I was in the best shape of my life, and underneath the surface, I was struggling every single day. I would look in the mirror and I was like, my uniform doesn't fit, it's too tight here, it's not good enough here. And it was this constant struggle with self-acceptance and self-love. And the worst that it ever was after my surgeries. I was in a wheelchair. I had a PCA pump in my spine, which is a patient-controlled anesthetic. So I would hit a button every 6 minutes to get pain meds. And this went on for months and months at a time. And, I developed an addiction to those and eating pizza and keeping myself locked in a room. I would stay in my room and not see people for 7 or 8 days at a time. And through all of that, it was almost like self-sabotage and getting it as worse as possible. And through the other side of it, I had some different insights, but it was definitely a struggle. And it actually took me being paleo for just over 2 years and having a blog and being a cookbook author and having an app out there to then come out to the world and be like, hey, by the way, I was still struggling with this while I was doing all this, and now this is where I am right now. And I did a huge post on my website. You can link to it if you want. It's called Dear Bulimia, You Fought Hard, But I Won. And I feel like, you know, the biggest thing for me was being comfortable in my own skin. I had these stereotypes associated with my life for a long time. I was an active duty Marine for 12 years. So my job, I was expected to go into combat with all my Marines and take them home. And I had the tattoos, I had the, you know, the shaved head. I was this big jack guy. And it's like, you have to be tough. You can't show emotion. You can't do anything. And one of my biggest breakthroughs is just being like, the strongest way to be is vulnerable and open about everything. Like, it is the most powerful, motivating force in this world, is to just be like, you know what? This is who I am. Take it or leave it. But I love me, and I'm completely sticking to what I'm doing. Like, I'm, you know, right now I'm a 31-year-old man. I'm engaged to the love of my life. I have a beautiful house, a beautiful family, and I'm bulimic. And I was for 12 years of my life. I lost 100 pounds, gained 100 pounds. I've struggled with everything else that everybody struggled with. And I just love talking about it, because no matter what, no matter where you are, no matter how successful you are, how young or how old you are, we all have our struggles and we all see the world differently. So we can all relate to each other, empower each other, share our journey, share our knowledge, and really at the end of the day, just be accepting of ourselves and other people. It's all about like compassion. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Right, and it's not easy in this society where everything is about appearance, and people are not really telling the truth on Facebook, and they just pretend to have everybody has a perfect life on Facebook, right?
Oh yeah, of course. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. And I don't use Facebook much. I keep it just to run my business pages, but I noticed a very big difference in how I kind of saw the world and how I filled my day when I eliminated it from my life. Because instead of being so consumed with everybody's perfect life and their perfect marriage and their perfect house and their perfect kids, I was like, oh, well, my dog peed on the floor and that's okay. We'll just work through it together. And, you know, it's actually fun sometimes to post about that stuff. You know, my wife and I are really, we're raw when it comes to our social media. Yeah. We post how it is. It's like, you know, right now in this moment, you may be happy, you may be sad, but just give a snapshot. If you're going to share it accurately and honestly and vulnerable. And, you know, you never know who you're going to touch, who's going to see it, who you're going to inspire. And that's what I've noticed, too, with my whole story. You know, I may be a paleo chef and I make recipes for a living, but one of my favorite things is sharing my journey, because I've kind of been through it all, from drugs as a child to social services to going to war, to seeing and losing friends all the time, to bulimia, to kind of all of it. And you know, I feel like we all have a way to touch each other, and the more real and open and honest we are, the better impact we're going to have. And even if it's only on one person, I always like to tell people, like, you never know how far that ripple will travel. And it actually doesn't even matter if you know, just still throw it out there, because it's just, I've just experienced it a lot in my career, in my paleo career. I've experienced it where things I would never know. I've had people reach out to me like, hey, do you remember that one time on that podcast 3 years ago where you said this? And I'm like, no, I don't. And they're like, well, I just listened to it yesterday. And I'm like, oh. And they're like, it literally changed my life. And so you never really know. So it's just be open and be raw and be vulnerable and kind of go for it.
Yeah, I suspect that Facebook has a way to also make people feel bad about themselves, because they see all these good stuff happening to everybody else, but then maybe their life is not so happy, and they get all sucked up into this you know, fake screen life kind of thing, you know. And that could, and not to mention, you know, the potential abuse by other people and so on and so forth. So thank you for sharing that. You also mentioned that you suffered from PTSD. Can you tell us about it and maybe help some other people with that issue?
Of course. So for people that don't know, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a very, very common thing, and it's not just associated with the military. No. PTSD has been around for a long time. You can have it from a child. You can have it from a traumatic event like getting in a car accident. It can come from everywhere. I just happen to have it from things that I've witnessed and experienced and done in my military career. So, yeah, it's a tough one. To be honest, it took me a long time to even come to grips with it. I was in denial for a long time because there's a lot of negative stigmas with especially military people and PTSD. You know, like you can't trust them. You're going to lose your stuff. You're going to end up killing someone. And I'm like, no, I'm scared and I cry. You know, like I have flashbacks and I wake up thinking I'm back there, or, you know, so it's a big heavy thing for a while. And the biggest thing for me was actually acknowledging it. You know, like I can't bring my friends back. I can't bring the guys that I brought in back. And but I can't blame myself for it either, because that's one of my biggest struggles is I blame myself for Tom and Nick and Joshua and all the other ones that made it home and then committed suicide from PTSD or didn't make it home under my watch. And it's a pretty heavy thing to shoulder. And I realized that if they were here, they would literally scream at me and be like, you're an idiot. Don't blame yourself. Like, I make my choice. You loved me perfectly. I took my journey. I did my thing. And so for me, it's just been being open about it. You know, it comes up a lot. I get triggered all the time, you know, and it seems to never end for me. We were at a funeral again about 7 months ago from another one of my Marines. Went to Afghanistan, went to Iraq twice, made it home, got out of the Marine Corps, married with a wife, 3 kids, and then he committed suicide. And it's a really dark battle for people. And there's a lot of stigmas in the military too. Like it's frowned upon to talk about it. It's almost like when you're in, if you say it, it's almost like you're the black sheep. Like, don't talk about it. No, we're tough. We're strong. We don't have to talk about this. And it really doesn't create success for people or safety, because when they get out or they're away from the military and they're on their own, they don't have the tools to cope and they don't really know what to do. So my best advice is for anybody, just reach out and ask for help. Like, that would be my number one piece, is just ask for help.
I have a personal question. This touches me personally. My son has PTSD from a very bad car accident. What can you tell me that I'm not able to tell him?
Well, I will say that the number one biggest thing for me that's helped, it's called EMDR. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And I thought it was cuckoo when someone told me about it. And I was like, no way, nope, not doing it. And then I eventually surrendered and I went, and my therapist is amazing. His name is Mark. And he actually does it all pro bono for me, just to help me. And it's scary to think about in the process, but it's been one of the most powerful moving things of my life. And through it, I've learned that I've talked to people about this on other podcasts. I did a podcast just about this with Madeline Moon. And we talked about tapping and tapping. EMDR in the context of what it does is it uses your body's signaling to reprogram neural pathways. So when things come up for you, you could reinstill a new belief rather than your fear. So it's done with visual, auditory, and sensory acuity. And you can do it as well. There's books on tapping. And one of the tools that Mark gave me is if I'm going through something, I can literally sit down and focus on something, and I can tap myself into a safe place, into a calm place. I've created triggers for myself. Like if I'm feeling unsafe, I literally spin my ring, and I remember when we programmed that I'm safe and I'm loved and I'm complete. I have triggers around going into guilt and shame about the loss of my Marines. And we created a trigger that every time I tap my finger, I have to forgive myself and be okay where I am. And as cheesy as it may sound, it is the most powerful thing because, you know, it's in an instant. I'll go into it and I'll be like, everything's happening. It's horrible. I feel like the world's caving in. And then just one trigger and I'm like, I'm okay. I'm here. I'm moving forward. So there's different tools for everybody. I found that the most empowering thing is just to be like, hey, I have PTSD and this is who I am, like that. And I say that a lot. That seems to be my common theme about the vulnerability piece. When I speak on stage, I talk about how I was sexually abused as a child. I talk about the drug abuse. I talk about everything. And people look at me like, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, none of that defines who I am as a person. It's just things that happen to me, but they don't have to control or run me. I can use those to make different choices all day. And so I feel like this is like all discombobulated and jumbled. My brain's going like a million miles a minute. But in the simplistic forms, my best advice to anybody is vulnerability. And really, when you're facing those fears, whether it's talking about it, whether it's telling someone that's close to you, or whether it's going to get treatment, it's face your fear. Like, be a heat-seeking missile for what you fear most, and you will get to the other side.
Yeah, my problem, at least his mother and I, problem is that he refuses to see any help. He refuses to see anyone day because he's all caught up in this macho bullshit. You got to be strong. You can't complain. You can't cry. You can't this. And so what would you tell him to convince him to get some help?
Well, I'm a 31-year-old Marine that's been to combat and done and seen things that most people haven't. And I was sitting here in tears talking about it because strength comes from vulnerability. To be completely honest, cowards hide their emotions. Heroes and people that make a difference in this world get really raw and go after everything that they know that they should.
Yeah.
And it's so cliche, but it's so true. When you think about it, like when you think about Martin Luther King standing for equality, or you think about Nelson Mandela in prison for how many years he was in there, and talking about how that could have been for them or anybody else, it's not like, oh, it was so easy for me. It's like they're on stage speaking and they're in tears. You know, you don't get to that point in your life by hiding things, pushing things down, stuffing them down, because that's just a ticking time bomb. So I would say my best advice is to redefine the limits of what you think is acceptable or masculine or strong, and take a look at the results that have been created by people that have walked before you, and realize that the strongest people are the ones that just go full bore, open, vulnerable, and ready to play this life. So for your son, if he watches or listens, or you just replay the spot, I will tell you personally that the strongest thing and the strongest I've ever felt is when I have a tear dripping down my face and I know that I'm completely whole and perfect as I am, and I'm inspiring and changing other people's lives by sharing my story. So
thank you for that. Of course, now I'm waiting from the let's be honest, my son's gonna be pissed that I mentioned that on the show. Totally. You know what? And show him this part as well, because this is what I'll tell him. I'm not his brother. I'm not his father. I'm not anything. If you're pissed off, it's because it landed. Take a look at why you get upset, because that means something that your father said or I said made a difference. And instead of being upset about it, choose something different. People care about you. People love you. And if things are landing and causing emotional reactions, it's because it's landing. And instead of being defensive and fighting the macho thing, that's the perfect opportunity to choose something different, like compassion and acceptance of yourself and the other people around you. Yeah, so indeed. That's my personal development advice for right now. So that way your son doesn't get mad at me. Thank you. You also wrote a book, The Paleo Kitchen. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, I actually have it behind me right there. I keep it in my own kitchen. That's how proud of him I am. Actually,
can you show it to us?
Yeah, hold on. Can I reach it? I got it. Here it is. The Paleo Kitchen. These pancakes are life-changing right here. They're on page 95. Page 95.
Okay.
You know, the Paleo Kitchen to me was a representation of a lot of milestones in my life. You know, if you asked me 4 years ago what I would be doing for a living, I'd be like, I'm a Marine, you know, and you never know what life's going to deal you. And the Marine Corps, we didn't talk about this earlier, but they medically separated me after 12 years. So I was intending on doing 20 years, and then I was going to hand out smiley stickers at Walmart. Like, that was my retirement plan. And I was like, I'll have benefits, I'll have a pension, I'm good. And then they're like, hey, by the way, you're not deployable anymore. You've been too injured from the traumatic brain injury, from the post-traumatic stress disorder, from your legs. You're not a good fit for us anymore. You're getting medically separated. And then you're like,
yeah.
And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I had no idea what I was supposed to do. And I'd been approached by a publisher a couple times to write a book. And I'm like, there's no way. I was working 80 hours a week as a Marine, commuting 2 to 3 hours a day. And I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way. And then when I got out and I realized that it was time to make a decision, like, no one's going to live my life for me. And I really didn't want to work for anybody else anymore. And I figured it was the time to step into my power and be like, this is who I am. Let's share it. I was like, yes, let's do it. You know, and to go from someone who's struggled with bulimia and eating disorders and body image and abuse and sexual abuse and everything, and then never cooked a day in his life, and then fast forward 2 years later and I write a #4 New York Times bestselling cookbook, I'm like, wow. And I still don't believe it. It's been over a year, and I swear to God, I still have trouble acknowledging myself for what an accomplishment that was. Like, for the rest of my life, I get to call myself a New York Times bestselling author, and I'm just like flabbergasted. So for me, paleo, I completely avoid the dogmacy of paleo. I feel like it gets really unsafe and unsupportive when we get to the point of telling people what's right and wrong. And we're like, no, you can't eat that. That's not paleo. Or no, you can't have that. Or that's the only thing you're allowed to have. And, you know, people do well being empowered and knowing that they're making the right choices and making choices on their own accord, which will allow them to choose it again rather than us choosing for them. So for paleo, for me, it's really just a framework and a template. And I eat gluten-free pizza and I eat white rice and I do all these things. And I do it with the mindset, like, I choose to have this meal. I choose to appreciate this meal. And then if I don't feel good, I choose something different next. Not, oh my God, I ate this meal and now I hate myself. I'm so bad. I have to punish myself. I have to start over. I tell people all the time on my blog and other podcasts, and this is my favorite quote I've ever came up with: you are not in a monogamous relationship with food. There is no cheating, only choices. Yeah. And the book was about making choices. Like, no, I don't think you should eat gluten-free or paleo pancakes every day. And no, I don't think you should eat chocolate ice cream every day. But I do think you should enjoy your life. And when presented with the opportunity to choose something that nourishes your body by having ice cream with coconut milk versus pasteurized, homogenized, processed dairy, or having pancakes that are gluten-free, grain-free, dairy-free, and soy-free rather than the ones that are loaded with gluten and all these other horrible things that we, you know, could go down the road for. So the book for me was just an expression of like, hey, you can still have delicious food and you can do it in a manner that supports your health, and, you know, use it as a reference, eat from it. There's meals in there that are completely Whole30 compliant. There's ones in there that you could eat every day. And I do. Actually, page 169 is the 4-layer bacon and beef casserole. And we made this thing, and it was in a 14-inch pan, and it never actually made it to the refrigerator because it got eaten that day between my wife and I. And I'm okay with you overindulging on paleo food. But yeah, so the book for me, it's just, I'm looking at it, like, as I look down, I'm looking at like my baby over there. But it's just a testament to what's possible. You know, it may not be the best cookbook on the planet. I think it is. And it may not have everything else, and there may be things missing. But for me, it's the best cookbook in the world because it represents like the culmination of a journey, and being able to take that journey and then use it to inspire and help other people. And we did that too in the beginning. I mean, the first 88 pages are just about how to go paleo and how to do it and make it fit into your lifestyle. Like, not a one-size-fits-all approach, but how do we make it work for you? Mm-hmm. We put tear outs in the back of it so you can hang them on your refrigerator for a shopping list and paleo guides. And you know, the whole premise for me is cooking's supposed to be fun. Yeah. And if you have fun in the kitchen, you're going to have fun eating it. And then that gets into the whole scientific piece of reduced cortisol and being in a sympathetic versus parasympathetic state and all those fun scientific big words. That means pretty much you're in the state to eat and enjoy your food and get healthy. And so if you're having fun while doing that, you're creating memories around food. And I look at food too. I tell people when I do cooking demos, it's the biggest compliment to me when people ask me to cook for them or they eat my food. Like, I don't think people realize this, but I'm giving life to people when I feed them my food. And I could literally make something wrong, cook something wrong, drop poison in something, and someone's life is over because they trust me to eat my food. Like, it's a really big deal. And I think we've become extremely disconnected from that as a society, to where like fast food or eating in the car on the way to work and all these other things. And the actual art form of cooking and the communal piece around that and the family piece around that, whether it's blood family or friend family or even stranger family, that it's like this unspoken connection and bond because you have a commonality. We all need to eat and we all enjoy tasty food. And when someone is like surrendered and vulnerable and they're like, yeah, I'm going to eat your food. They don't know what I put in it. They don't know if I made it right. They don't know if it's going to taste good. They don't even know who I am, but they trust me enough to take a chance and eat my food. It's a really big compliment because it's a really powerful thing for me. Like, we're giving life through food. So I just want people to remember that.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that because typically in America, you don't hear this kind of thinking about food. You know, I'm a chef by trade, right?
Oh, I do, yes.
Oh, yeah, and I have a book too. Maybe we should trade books. I'll send you
you guys my books, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm conscious of your time, George, so let's get down to the nitty-gritty. You've actually said a huge amount in quite a short time. You do talk very fast.
Yeah.
And, you know...
I've gotten that feedback before.
That's very good. No, it's clear, though. That's the main thing. Obviously, you've touched on a lot of things. People are going to want more information about that. Where is the best place for them to get that?
Yeah, the easiest place to find everything to do with me is civilizedcaveman.com. And on there, I link to everything. It links to my meal plans, which I do for free for people to help you in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. It has my posts on bulimia and all my favorite recipes. I think there's like 400 recipes on my website, and they're all free. And then, of course, I will tell you that the Paleo-kitchen.com or every Costco in the United States, if you're in the United States, and Canada as well, and then a few other places, Amazon, you name it. I think the book's like $18 on Amazon right now. I think it cost me more than that to make it, if I remember correctly. But it's a pretty good deal. And then, pretty much all my social media is linked from my website. And the website's the best place because that's where all the mouth-watering photos are, where you don't have to look at my face, but you can look at the food. So that's what people prefer. But that's the easiest place to find me, civilizedcaveman.com, and then the books on the paleokitchen.com.
Super job. Now, you did mention earlier that you cook for people. I take it you also speak at different events and so on?
Yeah, I do. I actually really, really love speaking. I spoke at Paleo FX this past year on how to use food to create breakthrough results in your life. Mm-hmm. And we could have a whole different topic on that. But basically, the premise is that how you show up with food is how you show up everywhere in life. So if you commit to a diet and decide to not follow through, it's making a commitment at work and not following through, making a commitment in your relationships and not following through. And successful people get there by habits and using food, and in the simplest of forms, not like I'm going to eat clean for 30 days, but hey, today I'm going to drink an extra glass of water every day. And you literally go one day at a time. And at the end of the day, you're like, hey, I drank an extra glass of water today. Good job. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Or hey, I didn't. And taking a look at why you didn't and what didn't work and being like, okay, great. Well, tomorrow's a new day. This didn't work, so I'm going to do something different tomorrow. And living from a place of like inquiry and choices and setting yourself up to win, because the dogmacy and the restriction and everything else surrounded by, I mean, pretty much any healthy living, eating, diet, lifestyle ever, it's all this like restriction thing. And it's like, how can we get to a different mindset to where it's like an enjoyment and an allowance that supports our health and gets us excited about it, rather than, oh, you can't have that cookie, to like, oh, I'm really excited to eat this steak, because it's the emotions around it. It's like how we relate to it and how we position it for ourselves. So I love to talk about that stuff in mindset because obviously it resonates with me a little bit. And so that's kind of, yeah, I like speaking. I like talking. I do a lot of podcasts because I like talking really fast and talking about my story. And
that's excellent.
Yeah, and really at the end of the day, if one person is touched by anything I said, like that's what matters to me. Because it, as much as I sit here and I talk about it in 40 minutes about my 12 years of struggling with bulimia and PTSD, I don't want anyone to think that I'm pulling the wool over your eyes. I cry every day. I actually cried 15 minutes before this interview in a conversation with my wife about business and inadequacies that I was feeling, and working myself into a positive mindset about creating different results. Like, it happens constantly and it's completely okay. I was literally upstairs washing my face because my eyes were swollen because I cried so much yesterday. I had like a breakthrough and I've been kind of stuck and like not really doing anything. And like we kind of worked through it yesterday and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, no one else is going to do this for me. Like, shut up and go take a step forward. But, you know, it took a lot of tough love and a lot of being really just honest and raw with myself and getting some critical feedback. And it's like, no one's going to create the family life that we want without me. Like, no one's going to create the dreams and the travel and the investments and everything else unless I step in and play the game too. And, you know, life doesn't happen to us. We make life happen. So
Indeed, yeah.
I just want everybody to know it's completely okay. And I'll talk about it all day. You'll actually catch me on Periscope sometimes, like crying my eyes out. I'm totally known to do that.
Okay, well, that's allowed.
So, it's okay. Tears are okay, people.
They are.
Tears are okay.
Now, for someone coming into paleo, sort of a raw newbie, with all your experience, what would you say is the most important step they can take?
The most important step they can take is the first step. One of the most common things that I find people coming into the lifestyle is they get overloaded and paralyzed with information.
Yeah.
They come in and everyone's like, do a Whole30, do this, do a sugar detox, do this, eat this. And then they're like, where do I go? And I make it as simple as possible. It doesn't matter if you start paleo today or 30 days from now or 60 days from now. But if you make one step towards that goal, whether you're talking about a paleo lifestyle and sleeping an extra hour every night or drinking more water or eliminating one food group from your diet that you know isn't supportive, if you do nothing but just that one thing at the end of 30 days, you'll have accomplished 30 things.
That's very true.
And then before you know it, you're like, wow, I did a Whole30 or I did this. And it wasn't like I had to do all 30 things at once. You just pick one thing every day. And if it's like, hey, today I'm going to cut out dairy and tomorrow I'm going to cut out gluten or grains, or hey, I'm just not going to have as many sodas today, or I'm not going to have as much coffee, or, you know, whatever it is for you. And it's different for everybody else, but just pick that one thing. And if you can keep your commitment to that one thing, that's what creates the habits and success, which is what I talk about.
Super job. Well, again, as I'm conscious of your time, can you just give us your website again?
Yes, my website is civilizedcaveman.com, or for the book, it's thepaleokitchen.com.
Super job. In that case, we'd better say goodbye. Alan, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah. Thank you again, George, for being on the Low Carb Paleo Show. And like we say in Texas, à votre santé, yo.
What he said.
Yes. Thanks.
Awesome, gentlemen. Well,
day.
have a good time in France and enjoy the humidity in Austin.
Thank you. I will.
All right, bye, guys.
Thanks, George.
Take care. Bye.